All right, everybody. Welcome. This is Illiterate. My name is Evan.
My name is Taylor. I read stuff this week.
I didn't read a lot, but I've read most of these books, actually. So we're doing something different. This is cool. I like it. We're going into an author. So, everybody knows.
Who are we talking about?
This is the Dr. Seuss episode.
Boom, boom, boom. Here we go.
Let's get into it. Taylor.
Yes.
Start me off with something shocking.
Just for some context, the earliest date that I have is 2009. Green Eggs and Ham, which came out in the 50s, sold 500,000 copies. So the highest book for children's books at that time, young adult, was Twilight, which sold 4 million. So Green Eggs and Ham was number 9 on that list with 500,000. The Places You Go was number 12. Cat in the Hat was number 13. One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish was number 15. Like, he's got 7 on the charts.
Books.
Yeah.
And
the top selling one.
J.K. Rowling is like 400 pages deep and like the 6th novel.
Yeah.
It's like,
so it's just madness to me.
3 cats in a bag of
Yeah. Not even close. Just in years, dozens of years past, he's still got 7 spots on the list.
Oh, man. He's the greatest. He's the king. He's the king. He's the...
And you have probably read something.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this, of him.
If you haven't, stop right now.
What are you doing?
Stop right now. Go read. If somebody who's never... Cat in the Hat.
100%.
Gotcha.
That was the inflection point for his career.
There's so many that I feel like I don't know. Like there are several.
A lot. He wrote over, I think it was 66 total.
Right. So in his career,
one a year.
I like finding ones that I like, obscure ones that I'm not as familiar with. I always think that's kind of neat. And at some point,
Fox
I guess
and Socks.
It'll probably be when I reach fatherhood or something, and I go back. But then I'll be like. That'll give me a reason to like actually like go into all of these other books that I never did. And just be like, well, what are these, and what do I want to pass on? So I don't know. That I'm kind of saving that for down the line.
Yeah, and you have so many. Like I said, you could do one a month for the entirety of your kid's childhood, and still it would work. Since we're talking about time, The Cat in the Hat took a year to write.
Oh, wow.
These are not, you think nowadays, oh, this is this 30-page book, and this is silly, right? He said he would write and draw. He did both. So he did the writing and the drawing.
That's just incredible.
Most known for the drawings, which is what the iconic style that nobody else had. No straight lines, weird animals.
Everything looks like a melted candle.
Yeah. Slowly dripping off the page.
It's like, was he on LSD constantly?
He definitely drank and smoked. But he spent, he would work 1,000 pages. And then would whittle it down to 60, 50, 40 pages. Like,
I don't think I have any kind of concept of what he was like as a person. Like, I don't know if he was like a gruff guy or like a sweet guy.
So he was a goofball. He was a goofball. He didn't necessarily... He never had kids.
That's interesting.
Yeah, his first wife had a bunch of health problems, and so they just could never have kids. He liked kids. He said that kids were... just like adults. So like there were some creepy ones, there were some great ones, We all know. And he just treated them like adults, but he was not fascinated by them in the kind of Mr. Rogers-y sense. He also was very much an introvert, and why he could come up with these fantastical worlds on his own. So he didn't really, at the beginning when stuff got big, Cat in the Hat came out, Grinch came out, Lorax came out, all these kind of things. They wanted him to do a lot more public appearances, and he was sort of freaked out by that. He would go hide doing other things. They had this event at a mall that he was supposed to be a part of, and they couldn't find him. He disappeared, and he was changing the prices on expensive shoes in one of the stores because the whole place was shut down. He was like, these are too much. So he was sort of a prankster, but he didn't like being in the public eye, which was to his benefit because you don't know what he looks like, really.
Yeah, no.
A lot of people don't know what he looks like. Or they just assume that the Cat in the Hat wrote all these things. When you're 5 years old, you just see
I think that's actually was my perception at 5 years old, because like the Cat in the Hat does appear on every one of the books in the corner.
Yeah, it was a series called Beginner Books.
Yeah, and it just kind of it assumes that role, which is strange. And I'm not sure when I actually made the distinction that no, there's a person that goes by the name Dr. Seuss that made all of these things. And
so
actually
at a certain point, he kind of was like, oh, well, then I'm just going to take on this persona. So he came up with a lot of answers to typical questions with silly rhymes and came up with funny stuff and was like, oh, I'm just going to be the Dr. Seuss that kids think I am. And then that worked really well for his public appearances as opposed to trying to be himself.
Mm. Oh, that's fun. So he kind of got to break, he created the act of Dr. Seuss and it let him break out a little bit.
Yeah, and be more...
How crazy did it get while he was still alive? I'm not aware of how
like
aware
the
of his
Beatlemania
popularity.
of that?
Yeah, I'm not aware of his popularity, his awareness of his popularity by the time he passed away.
Even in his life, it was like, oh, this is the most popular children's. It wasn't like a long tail like Jane Austen where 200 years later it gets picked up. It was in that time frame. It was pretty New York Times bestsellers list. Yeah, translated into 30 languages. That was all happening within his lifetime. Cool. So he was able to see that acclaim. Cool. I just want to go through kind of some background since we're talking about his later life. We'll set up how that came to be. 1904 is when he was born. He died in 1991. So what is that?
Damn.
Yeah. Long life.
I was 92. Come on, baby. Just a few more months.
He lived in Springfield, Massachusetts. German parents. So if you know anything about history, people started to become prejudiced against Germans because of World War I and World War II. His dad owned
those two things.
Yeah. Very important. His dad owned a brewery, and that was, I guess, a common prejudice was that Prohibition came about immediately after that, so there was a lot of heat on his family for A, being German, and B, owning a brewery. So his dad nixed the brewery because of Prohibition.
Under fire from all sides.
Yeah. Nixed the brewery from Prohibition and then bought the zoo in Springfield, or started running the zoo. So this is where...
Matt Damon movie?
Dr. Seuss as a child?
We bought a zoo.
This is where you can see the start of his dad giving him pens and paper and being like, draw the animals. So he has... And then there's an actual book that he came out with called If I Ran the Zoo. Mm-hmm. And it's about this little kid running around doing all this stuff, messing with all the animals, getting all these crazy things. That book is where the first recorded instance of the word nerd comes from.
Oh, really?
So he's credited as inventing that word, although he's not using it in reference to a geeky person, but it never existed anywhere before because he's just making up crazy words.
My favorite reappropriation of If I Ran the Zoo was after the Harambe incident. It's like everybody online, that became a meme. It was just like, the internet needs to be quiet right now. Because everybody was in that mindset. Well, if I ran the zoo.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Like, you know how to deal with animals and danger. Yeah. I do remember that.
Maybe we're not all experts on everything, and our opinions maybe don't matter when it comes to really intense specific topics that require an intense amount of study and preparation to even attempt.
Yeah. But he had that in his childhood, so he could talk about it a little bit. He saw it firsthand.
If I ran the zoo.
Well,
I could imagine a child like...
What a great creative outlet.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just went to the... This is interesting. I just went to the zoo on Sunday. And every time I go to the zoo, I think about every time I've ever been to the zoo, and most of the times I've been to the zoo was as a child. Mm-hmm. And so I can imagine a creative child, if they're growing up in that environment, seeing these things all the time. If that's how you're introduced to the world and animals, like you could start making your own creatures. And
you have an unlimited pass to just walk around and do whatever
all these
you want.
Crazy plants and, environments and all of that stuff. Is like you see how crazy the world is when it's all in one little place and you can walk pin to pin and see just how nuts everything can be. Yeah. Like I can imagine, a small child taking that in and saying, this is what the world is. Oh, look. I'll put cotton candy on trees and it'll be neon pink, absolutely. Yeah.
Also combined with that, his parents were super supportive. They weren't like, get out of here. Right. His mom was like, come up with rhymes and goof around and make up stuff.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Like, it's just a perfect little concoction of a childhood there to
it's like they say about how like Bill Gates was in the right high school at the right time that had this computer that he could learn to code on. How you get just these serendipitous moments. Thank God that this kid's dad couldn't run the brewery and decided to run this zoo.
Right.
I
mean, the doors opened up. I mean, amazing.
So he goes to Dartmouth, which is in New Hampshire, and is the editor for this comedy magazine. He gets in trouble because he's found drinking gin in the dorms.
Oh.
Prohibition, so they kick him off. Can't do it anymore. But he decides to submit under a pen name, Dr. Seuss, which nobody knows because his real name is Geisel, which is the German name. But Seuss was his mother's maiden name, which became his middle name. That's the middle name they gave him. Technically, in German, it's pronounced Seuss.
I did know that, and I had heard that before.
But everybody just called it Seuss, and then it sort of sounds like Mother Goose. And then when he started doing the kids' books, he said, cool, so be it.
It goes down a little smoother than Seuss.
Yeah.
Sounds like I'm trying to say source in some sort of strange
or
South American
soy
accent.
sauce, and you don't know what you're trying to do. So it's Seuss.
Lethal poison.
What is that from?
It's the end of Envy. They can't understand the doctor. She's trying to say lethal poison, and she's saying lethal poison, and they're like, little person? So anytime I can't understand somebody, that's just what I think. The movie Envy, everyone.
The movie?
The movie Envy.
Memes, real life memes. Everybody's got the catchphrases that they say to their friends.
Mine is lethal poison.
And Evan and I have stolen so many from the How the Grinch Stole
Oh
Christmas.
man, so many from the
live-action
Grinch.
one.
Well, I think me and you, and then me and my friend Griffin, we probably quote the Grinch almost every time we're together.
On a daily basis, the words get mentioned.
Jerry, eviction.
Yeah. So the doctor. The first part was the Seuss. The second part is Seuss. The first part is the doctor.
know the doctor. I love this. Please tell them.
So the doctor, he was going to Dartmouth to become a teacher, and then he went to Oxford to get his professorship degree. He ended up not getting it, but that doctor is a reference to his father who wanted him to have a higher education degree or become a veterinarian or do something that wasn't writing. Still supportive of him.
Yeah.
But he was like, cool, I'm going to keep it. Dr. Seuss it is.
It's almost like, well, I tried.
Yeah.
It's like, is this good enough? Please. Please be enough.
But in the Please Be Enough, he was successful. I didn't know anything about this for 10 plus years. So he left Oxford, found the love of his life, Helen, went to New York to become an illustrator for magazines, advertising, that kind of world. Yeah, they traveled the world together. And he was just boom, 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 living it up. Got super successful. There was a company that was a bug spray company called Flit. And he made up this phrase that was like, Henry the Flit. And for whatever reason, that caught on and became a meme at that time. And other companies were copying it. And he just did a bunch of stuff related to that. He tries to write this kid's book, and it gets rejected by a bunch of publishers. And that book was To Think That I Saw It on Mulberry Street. The reason they didn't like it. So here's the history of children's books and why he popped and why he was way ahead of his time. The children's book, the primers of that time, primer being like, before you know how to read, this is what you're going to be doing, was all Dick and Jane, were these two kids, and there was a theory behind reading that you would want it to be whole word retention, not sounding it out. It was a change in learning style. So instead of being like, at, cat, you just wanted kids to pick up on the whole words. But you can only do that so long, or it's too much if you have too many words. So these books are super repetitive. They're very boring. And they were like, well, we can't write anything that kids are not going to understand. So it's just like kids sitting in the yard and their dad comes home, or they see a blue car, or there's a cat on the street. Like really boring, uninteresting things to read about. His book, To Think That I Saw It on Mulberry Street, was about this kid imagining all this crazy stuff that goes on in his neighborhood. And people were like, this is immoral, teaching kids how to lie about stuff that didn't happen. Like, no, that's not the point. It's expressing their imagination. So that's why it got rejected.
Really missing the force.
Because it was a moral question. They were like, well, these books that were supposed to be teaching kids how to read should just be that. And so his friend, who he was about to burn the thing in the garbage, apparently, and be like, this is stupid. And his friend, who worked at a different, smaller press company, was like, no, we'll publish it. Didn't do that well. So he was like, nah, whatever. And then...
We printed it on sandpaper. Sorry.
Nobody can hold it.
We messed up, man. I'm sorry.
I thought you were a book publisher. No, we make sandpaper. I said I'd help you out. So that didn't work out. World War II hits. He's like, I got to do something. He's 38 now. He's had a career already in New York. They fly him over to Los Angeles, part of the first thing of the Army, which is the first motion picture unit. And he becomes a captain. So they're making training films, animated training films for the Army. Big popular one called Captain Snafu. And they're sort of lewd.
Do these exist online?
Yeah, we'll put some links in the email.
We're going to be in that email.
illiterate@email.com.
Boom.
Send your name. Get them.
Do it now.
So he's also working on propaganda-y type stuff in the good way of being like, we need to not be so isolationist. He's working with a crew doing a documentary about what's going on. Hot nib right here to keep in touch with. A part of this first motion picture unit at the time, Chuck Jones came up with Looney Tunes he worked with. He also worked with Frank Capra, the famous director of the time, who did It's a Wonderful Life. Yeah. And then one of the playwrights that he was with, Stan Lee of Marvel.
What?
They were all working together.
Wow.
During World War II.
That's a stacked room.
Yeah. And then they all became, in their own right,
incredible
animators, writers, storytellers. But they all worked together on these films.
They all became the man.
Yeah. In their own things. But I couldn't believe that. Stan Lee really threw me for a loop. I was like, that's seriously amazing. Work with Dr. Seuss.
Whoa. He just passed away. You know, like, wow, we're not that far out.
No, yeah. So they all worked together in World War II. The documentary that they did got an Academy Award in 1947.
Oh, cool.
It got repurposed and repackaged out to the public.
I would like to see that too, yeah.
So then after World War II, now he has not written anything related to children's books or anything in over 8 years. But he decides to get back into it. That's where he does If I Ran the Zoo. But now that he's permanently in LA, he's like, oh, maybe I should do movies. So that he writes a script. This is the only live action, anything he ever did.
Oh, okay.
It's called The 500 Fingers of Dr. T. It's just this off-the-wall, acid trip, crazy movie about this guy who's making a bunch of kids play this really long piano and it's all over the place. Hollywood sort of messes it up for him.
My mouth is hanging open right now, for those of you not in this closet.
Yeah, it is on the ground. I had to pick it up.
Sorry about that.
It's now a cult classic because it's atrocious, because they ruined it, and they're like, there needs to be an adult love interest, and there needs to be all these jokes for the adults. And he's like, no, I just want to make something mad and kooky and off.
Fingers of Mr. T.
Dr. T.
Dr. T.
Yeah.
I got to put that doctor in there.
He's like, I can never get over it.
I wish it was Mr. T.
Yeah, it was like before he even knew who he was.
I got 500 fingers.
Fool. But it was trash, apparently. So he's like, I'm never doing this ever again. So
movies are terrible.
Yeah. So then he goes back to movies. His wife she's had health problems. She gets really super sick, needs to be in an iron lung.
Oh
he
my
sort
gosh.
of falls off the wagon and is like, this is important to me. I can't be doing this stuff.
Wow. When did she get sick?
54.
Ugh.
Yeah. So now they're hitting middle age in that time frame. He starts doing a couple more children's books. The Sneetches. This is when he does Horton Hears a Who. But going back to what I was saying before about the primers, the person that he worked with that was his boss at Random House was like, kids can't read. This is horrible. So the stuff that he's doing with Horton Hears a Who and these, If I Ran the Zoo, all that kind of stuff, it's not designed for the early readers,
right,
getting you interested in reading, that kind of thing. So what happens is the guy proposes, here's this list of the 300 words that kids need to know by this time.
Right. He
started writing a book and it was about somebody climbing Mount Everest or something like that. And he was like, well, I can't use peak. I can't use wind. They're not even on this list. So he got frustrated. He was like, what are the 2 first words that rhyme? Cat, hat, boom, there it is.
We're off.
And I think he uses 90% of the words on the list. He uses a huge majority in The Cat in the Hat. Like I said, spends a year on it, blows up. Crazy. Super popular. People love it. It's like nothing they've ever seen. So I'm going to read for you.
He's just throwing his hands up, being like, what's the 2 for cat? Done. Fine. Whatever.
I'm sick of it. Let's do it. I've written 1,000 pages.
11 months.
Yeah.
God.
Here we go.
Then 11 months later, throws the manuscript down on the table. There. I used 90% of them. Are you happy?
Yeah. 4 million copies sold in the first year.
Then he turns around. It's a massive success. He's just like face in his hand.
Maybe I shouldn't have spent as much time on this.
But then he figured it. I guess then he figured it out. It's
That's
just
the
off
system.
off to the races.
He goes on it. So I'm going to read you a bit of The Cat in the Hat so you get a sense of the simplicity of the words, the flow. I just feel like it makes you want to read more. Yeah, so it says, for The Cat in the Hat, this is right when he comes in. We looked, then we saw him step in on the mat. We looked, and we saw him, the Cat in the Hat. And he said to us, "Why do you sit there like that?" And then you flip the page. But that was so much more fun. Here's a sample of Dick and Jane. Jane said, "Look, look, I see a big yellow car. See the yellow car go?" Sally said, "I see it. I see the big yellow car. I want to go away in it. I want to go away, away."
Aliens. Kill the aliens. Kill them all.
Because they thought that repetition and the boring...
No, you just sound like you don't.
So seeing a cat flailing around the house with crazy machines and all over the place.
It's like you're trying to communicate to a dog or something. It's like...
Yeah,
they're human. It's like you're just making it confusing by just saying it over and over again.
Yeah,
you
this is not how people talk.
It's like you don't talk like that ever when you're talking to me until I start reading this book, and then now I'm addressed in this. Like, what's No, it's
and also
fake.
This is not how any other book is ever written.
Right.
So why would you try and teach somebody how to read?
It's like it's kind of out of reality almost.
Yeah. So that's kind of where we're at. Like, why in the world is this guy so popular? How did because it was completely off the wall from anything of what anybody was doing.
Coming in a totally different way. But I love that he took the words, that list of words, and he's like, because underneath it, he does want it to be good. He does want kids to get something out of it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
So he's like, fine, I'll do whatever you need me to do. These are the words I can use, fine.
Yeah. A huge part of his, and this might be something to consider talking about, is the creative limitations. Because that's most of his career, is how can I do this with more or with less or with these things or with that. And I think that is a big thing to embrace when you're trying to make something.
Yeah.
Is let me put a constraint so that I can work in that. And then there's a ton of freedom. But also just the fact that, like, his morals and lessons, he's like, I don't have to put a moral. If it's a good story, there's going to be something worth gleaning from it.
Right.
These Dick and Jane books have no purpose whatsoever. There's no anything for a kid to learn.
Aliens, kill them.
Except, do what your parents tell you to. But the Cat in the Hat it's a fear of the unknown.
Right.
It's this cat coming in. They're waiting in case you forgot about the story. They're
risk
waiting
and trust.
They're waiting for their parents to come home. It's raining. There's nothing to do. This cat barges in and is like, "We can have fun," all over the place.
Cocaine on the couch, and
then he leaves. He leaves, and they're like, "The house is a mess. What are we gonna do?" And then he comes back in, and he's like, "No, it's fine." And he gets his crazy machine, cleans it all up, and then leaves.
That's never happened when one of my friends has left my apartment in a complete and total mess. That has never happened. They've never once come back and cleaned the whole thing and made it into an incredible story and made me feel good about it. Not once.
Completely unrealistic.
No one ever comes back and says, "You know what? I'm sorry. You're right. Let me help you clean all this up."
That's why you need a Cat in the Hat friend.
I guess so. Better than all of us.
Yeah.
Fear of the unknown. Trust. Risk.
It ends in a question, which I didn't realize until I read it again. It says, like, "And what would you tell your mother? Would you tell her what happened?" Which is also completely bonkers for that time frame to be like, "Oh, do you trust your kid to tell you the truth or not?"
Right.
Or would you, or like, then the kid has to think, "Okay, I just read this book, The Cat in the Hat. Now, like, would I break down at 3 a.m, run into my parents' room and be like, 'I'm sorry, there was a cat in the hat'?"
Right. Well, we've all been in a situation where we thought something was going to end up way wronger than it ever ended up at all. So... and especially as a child, like, I remember, like, getting into something or feeling like I had broke something or done something wrong, and can I fix it before my parents get home? Can I fix it before my dad sees us? Can I fix it before my mom finds out? That way, maybe they don't even have to know about it, because if nothing happened, nothing happened. You know, it's like, that is... I remember those types of thought process, like, as a small child, like, just,
and to
like,
be reading, this is why it resonates so much, because a kid reads that and it's like, "Oh, this person, whoever's writing this, trusts me."
Right. That's an interesting place for a kid to be, waiting on their parents to get home when they're, that hour between getting home from school.
And then the whole layer of, you're also learning words and learning how to read.
Right.
And these are the things that you need to know. And it's bouncy and fun and interesting and things are happening. Yeah.
And it rhymes.
And it rhymes.
Let's be real, we're all just giddy over the rhymes.
So this was interesting. relating to what the the.
All right.
Well, I'm just so excited to talk about the next thing.
I'm teed up, right? Let's go.
Cat in the Hat blows up 57. Takes him a year. The Grinch comes out the exact same year.
Ooh.
Christmas time. He wrote it in a few weeks.
Wow.
He got it done.
Was he like, I hope his publishers were like, we really need something for the Christmas holidays. Can you get us something in 4.5 weeks? And he's like, maybe I can do 6. And then it's like, just because of the constraint, he just pumped it out. And then bam, American classic.
Like, wait a second. You can do
written
this.
into the lexicon of all. Like, it's just.
Yeah. I love the Grinch. I think the Grinch is my favorite. Speaking of his personality, so he had been on record saying, like, he's half the cat and half the Grinch. Kind of getting a sense of who his character is. Sometimes he's corporate America and with this and that, and other times he's whimsical and wants to play, and so that kind of ties into his nature. And interesting that he wrote them both in the same year.
Yeah. I mean, arguably the two biggest back to back.
Yeah.
What was he on?
Doing the Grinch.
I love that good Coca-Cola.
Going back to your Grinch rhymes. I love the Grinch rhymes.
And now that I think about it, I don't remember the last time I read it, because when I think of the Grinch, when I think about, in my mind, that when I go to classic the Grinch, I kind of go to the cartoon.
So the cartoon,
which is later. So it's like, I don't, you know, was about like, now I'm like, what was the book? So I feel like it's like a memory in a memory.
Right. Like, was it the book or the way that So the cartoon was 10 years after he wrote The Grinch. Like I said, he was jaded by Hollywood, didn't want movies made, certainly nothing live action, because that was that 500 Fingers of Dr. T. But your boy, Chuck Jones, the Looney Tunes guy, came back to him and was like, dude, we got to make this into an animated thing.
Chuck Jones relevant all the time.
Yeah. So he comes back in. Seuss is like, I like this guy. I trust him. He can make some stuff. But then nobody else. So that's how The Grinch got made.
Interesting.
The Lorax was made. Some Cat in the Hat stuff was animated. Wasn't as good because Chuck Jones wasn't as involved in those.
I love when you can see somebody's touch throughout pieces of work, even if it's like in a series and this person only did like a couple episodes, but you just like, there's something about those episodes when you find out that's like, well, this guy that created the thing did these 3 and then he left because of some other, you know, just like, oh man, you can feel it. There's something in it. Like, you know.
Well, and with the first Grinch, the Chuck Jones one, they were saying it was like 5 times the amount of animation frames, meaning they drew 5 times the amount of stuff, because it is very fluid and Seussy.
It's beautiful.
So it took a long time to put together. Personal stuff, since this, I think, ties into the work that he's creating. So he does that, and then after the Cat in the Hat and the Grinch, he comes up with this publisher is like, dude, cool, you did it. You put in all these words. Can you do it in 50 words or less? Can you use 50 words or less? So another creative constraint.
Baby, I've got another idea for you since you brought it home last time, honey. Let me tell you, can you do it in 50? Can you try it in 50? Because it might be the key, son. I'm just imagining the overs. This is like the weird age. It's just like, can you jump through this hoop? I'm fine. You know, like,
listen, Bert, like, Like, I'm just out here drawing.
Why was he? Yeah, I was like, I want to know what were the pressures on this agent? Being like, you got to do it in 50 words or less. I've got to make a lot of money.
He's getting weird letters in the mail. He's just like, somebody keeps telling me we got to do this, so we got to do it.
For some reason, Dr. Seuss is on the other line, just pumping out the classics, just saving this guy's rump.
Yeah, blackmail. We don't know why.
Anyway,
so he does Green Eggs and Ham. Is the classic also 50 words or less. He uses 49. Gives him the big old middle finger. He says, I can do it in 49.
That agent. Oh, you get me every time, boy. Are we going to talk about One Fish, Red Fish, Two
We will get there.
Okay, good, because that's my favorite.
So in this time frame, now that he's doing this stuff, his wife is super sick. We sort of hit a low point in his life. She is helping him a lot with the editing and putting things together and being a good support structure, but she's just a mess. Medically.
What happened to her?
The disease she have is Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Never
which
heard
I don't
of
know
that.
specifically what that is, but she had polio as a kid. It's kind of a stronger derivation of that has no cure. That is slowly wasting her away. So it's unfortunate, and this is kind of this is like, if there ever was, everybody's got a scandal. If there ever was a scandal about Dr. Seuss, it would be this, which is his wife is now sort of off on the sideline, and there's this other lady that's in his life that is like a friend and lives next to them, but clearly they're having an affair or he's more interested in a relationship with her. And they get home one day and his wife has overdosed and committed suicide.
Oh my God.
And leaves a note on the dresser being like, I can't live up to what you want. And blah. It's extremely,
oh my gosh,
touching, because she was thinking like, I just got to be done, So he's wrecked. He's like, should I burn the house down? Should I just stop? What should I do? Because he's just like destroyed by this. And then he gets a lot of guff for it because it looks like he is the cause of her ending everything, which I'm sure there was some factors involved, but nobody can know anybody's intimate personal life.
No, but that's the obvious thing that you would go to. Like, it's multifaceted,
Yeah.
You'll never know the answer, but
then what is interesting is the fact that this woman, Audrey, who he was with a thing with, she divorces her husband and they get married the next year. But that turn in that relationship is when he kind of takes on the faux Dr. Seuss persona, is out way more in public, doing all kinds of stuff, sort of gets a new lease on life because she's much more animated into the parties and doing all this stuff. And like that propels that energy that he has.
Well, what's his real name?
Theodore.
Well, Theodore probably didn't like Theodore a whole lot then, so it was probably a lot more fun to be Dr. Seuss.
Yeah. He was very he would just be in his room writing these thousands of pages. The next book that he came out with was in 1971, because she died in 1967. So the next book that he came out with was The Lorax, which also seems to be, he's being way more political, on the nose about the topics in the books.
It's sad. The Lorax is just like, it's a downer.
Yeah. But yeah, so then he just continues on. He wins the Pulitzer Prize in 1984.
What?
The first children's book ever.
Wow.
Or children's author. Dies in 1991. What else? What else
Killed
did you have?
3 people between 1977 and 1983.
Was on the run as a hitman / con man.
It's known as the infamous... Like, what would the Dr. Seuss serial killer name be? Like...
It's like
if in his universe, if there was a serial killer creature, was just murdering
the Florgan Mouse.
yeah, the Larkin,
the Glunk.
That's the other Dr. Seuss biography I want to totally.
So he did have. There was another guy in La Jolla. Is that how it's pronounced? La Jolla, whatever it is, in California.
Yeah.
Sorry if you're there. It's confusing. Why do we say Rodeo Drive but then call it Los Feliz? Like, who knows? Deal with it. He lived there. There was another guy who was a Dr. Seuss there, who was just some actual doctor, and so he kept getting his mail. And so this guy's mail, it's just all collaborated as one life, and like some of his stuff is in the Dr. Seuss archives and the family whatever and the museum stuff.
Oh my gosh.
Even though it has nothing to do with him, but he just thought it was funny that they kept on getting confused, and so they put it in his private library.
That's
and everything.
Hilarious.
And then also there was a fish market in that town that was one phone number off from his. Mm-hmm. So he would take the calls, pretend to take the order, and then send people these crazy drawings of the fish that they wanted in his Dr. Seuss style. It's like they're probably waiting for a while to get this order that they ordered, and then they just never got it, but got some crazy drawing of a fish. So he did live different lives.
That is what you ordered.
Yeah. You ordered the Friegelflams. So he did. He was a split personality. I don't know if he killed anyone.
We can only hope.
We can only hope that the documentary or the biopic with Leonardo DiCaprio's
The Dark Side of Dr. Seuss.
Let's talk about after, because this is probably what most of us know.
Yeah.
So his wife, Audrey, his second wife, who he married, she lived until just December of last year of 2018.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
She was like 90-something. But she took over everything, and then completely counter to what he was about, which was no toys, no merchandising, no. Now they have like Cat in the Hat gummies and all that. She was of the mindset of like, if we want this thing to last, we've got to put it out there,
right,
in all the new ways possible. Even though his books are still beating out children's books that come out year to year.
How do you feel about that? Because it's, it's not what he was about, but it's like, well, it did endure, and it probably will because of her decision. So it's like, was that wrong?
I think it's a tough call because, so like, for example, after The Cat in the Hat came out with your boy Mike Myers doing a Brooklyn accent,
Circa
just
2005 being absolutely strange.
Yeah, bizarre. People were like, this should be PG-13. This is madness.
It was uncomfortable. It was not for children.
She did not, I don't know how, I think after that she was like, wait, I gotta get my fingers in the pie much more. Because she did not like it and vocalize that. And then that's when they were like, we're never making an anime or a live action ever again. We're only doing animated. And I have to completely oversee what's going on.
And
so that's why you haven't
done another one, have they?
No, because they did the Lorax. They did Horton Hears a Who,
it's all animated.
and they did the Grinch this past year.
Which is like, why did the Grinch? He has a lot of others. Just do a different one. Just do a different one. We already have the Grinch.
I didn't see what they're going to be doing next, but I think they're going to be doing an animated Cat in the Hat next.
I guess that could use a reading.
Right. That is worthwhile.
Well, yeah, we don't want to terrify the children, so.
Well, so here's the interesting thing, the research that I did for that movie and why it was trash.
Yeah.
So the original person to play the Cat in the Hat, Tim Allen.
Oh.
He
Weird.
had said in interviews, and he was heavily involved in the creative process, he was like, the book was scary to me as a kid. So I think that influence in the creative process was like, but Tim, that's not most people's
I don't think that's most people's
response
experience, no.
to it. It's
Nor
like
is
you
it
just
like
had
a takeaway.
It's not the intent either.
No.
It's like, yeah, this is a weird, funky thing that happens, but the goal was not to make you terrified as a 5-year-old.
That's what the film is. The film is uncomfortable. It is on edge.
Yeah.
You never know what this cat is about to do, and it's serious because he's real flesh and blood, and he is in your house. Like, it was not fun.
I don't remember
and visually, it's like you're on an LSD trip too. It's just like, it's just off-putting in every possible way.
Yeah. So he had a heavy influence in that, and then he dipped because he had to do Santa Claus 2. And then they brought Mike Myers on the
naturally.
scene. And I think this was the first movie from this director. I don't know his name. So that's also troubling.
I wish it was Gore Verbinski.
Of Pirates of the Caribbean fame. It would have been the most epic 5-hour Cat in the Hat. He would take over the entire neighborhood.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll do something good with Cat in the Hat again.
Gore Verbinski, weird filmmaker. Anyway.
Just shout it out. If you know him, let us know if he's weird in real life.
What's your favorite Gore Verbinski film? Email us at illiterate@email.com.
We want to know. These are the hot button issues.
Yeah. Well, okay. Oh, there we go. That's Dr. Seuss. That's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
Certainly a lot that I didn't know.
What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, the first and foremost, I'm interested in the constraints. Because it seems like he's constantly trying to make it good. He wants to reach children. He wants to actually do the real work. It's not Dick and Jane just get it done and treating children like dogs. It's like actually connecting, and then to be thrown these, these constraints by his publisher or agent or whoever, and letting that inform how he's going to reach his goal, and not looking at it seems like he's embracing it. Actually, it's just like, I can't use any of these words. Here, give me the list, I'll do something with this, and then look at what he did with that. It's the constraints. If you can frame it in your mind right, man, they can open so many doors. And if you can trick yourself into accepting them, sometimes they can just.
Or like with advertising, it's like, we got to sell bug spray. That's the goal.
Well, right, and that's another thing I want to talk about is working in different areas and making different types of books and content and reading and drawings and all of those types of things to figure out how to reach a specific audience working on that skill set of like, this is what it takes to get an idea across to the people I want to get it across to. Let me take what I've learned now and do it for a different audience.
Right. Making a World War II propaganda film for the soldiers that they will respond to. It's like, you got to put some naked women in there.
Right.
It's got to be sort of smutty. Like, you can't, if you don't want them to spill the beans about the operation.
But it doesn't mean that Dr. Seuss is a horn dog. It's right. He's trying to reach his audience. He's playing to his audience because he wants to reach them. At the end of the day, there's a reason for what, he's trying to get something across, whether he's paid to get that message across or whatever it is. Yeah. But you have to study the success there.
Or that he had breaks in between where he tried to do the Mulberry Street book before World War II, then went and did something completely different.
And it takes time. And so like, and these things, like, I can imagine to him the years that it takes and the years that go by in the middle of these things. You never know if something is actually a success.
He was in his 50s when Cat in the Hat came out.
Right. It's just like it just kind of, you just got to keep trucking on, basically, is what I hear. It's like, you just got to keep going on, and that eventually it will pay off. Somebody will notice it. You'll catch a break if you just keep on.
Yeah.
And don't let it get you down. I think it's interesting with him is he's not like Buck Wild going in crazy different directions. He's just he's a writer, he's a cartoonist, and he's just exploring in those. It's not like he's a writer cartoonist and he's putting out an album and he's and
he's cutting hair
and he's joining the circus and no, it's like he's a writer, he's a cartoonist, and he's just kind of dabbling in all of the, like, as far as that realm will let you go, which is as far as you want to go, and he showed us all of that with what he pulled out of his head.
Yeah. But he could have been like, but this isn't working. Yeah. Or like, I'm going to go back to advertising.
Right. Because I think a lot of his focus is he does want it to be good. And then it's not like social media is around and we can jump on Twitter and like see that they liked the thing. It's like, well, it's just out in the world.
Or I spent 12 months drawing this stupid cat in this stupid hat.
Yeah. And now it's out there. I guess people like it. Like now I get to see the returns. Oh, it's making some money.
Yeah.
That's nice. When I go to appearances, people are starting to say nice things. That's cool. Mm-hmm. But you don't see it like how we see it now. You couldn't, it's like, even at the height of it then, it's like, it's to imagine that it's still going 60, however many years later, it's just, it's not stopping. They're going to make another one, And
they're making the animated movies, and they're keeping all of the ideas out there. We brought up going into the World War II stuff and how I was amazed that Stan Lee was one of his co-workers.
No, it reminded me a lot of the Spielberg, Coppola, that like group of filmmakers through the 70s.
Yeah.
And how they're all like just buddies, helping each other, giving notes on each other. They're a little they're a little competitive with each other, but it's they're just all doing the same thing, trying to make good work and trying to help each other make good work.
Yeah.
And then look who they became, and look what they did, and how it changed their medium. And it's like that really reminded me of just like that room you're describing here with like Stan Lee and Chuck Taylor and like Chuck like you just sorry, Chuck Taylor, the Converse guy. Chuck Taylor was there
making shoes. What are you doing in the animation department?
You never know, but just you never quite know who people are going to turn out to be. I mean, look at that. I mean, you would have
legends in their own rights,
right? Yeah. And just all hanging out in the room, probably very insecure about everything that they're doing.
And it's World War II. It's we might die,
right? At any moment they might be like,
yeah.
I just like how open he is, I guess. Like, that's a lot of what I'm like. There's a lot of openness there. He's just like, he's taking in the constraints. He'll do the other job. He's still, but like taking what he needs from it and really repurposing it, repurposing.
He moved from New York to LA to do that film thing.
Right. Yeah. It's like, that's a hard, like, a lot of people are not that open and not that just like,
Yeah.
It almost was like he was just like pretty secure and just trying to do better. I don't know. That's kind of admirable.
Yeah.
It's like he just kept on trucking the whole time. And I mean, and things were good. But who
knows? Do you want to go into the thing about his wife?
Well, that certainly is one of the big shockers here because he sounds kind of like the old John Edwards in the old presidential election in 2004. his wife had cancer, and it turns out he was having an affair on her. So it's just like, man, is Dr. Seuss John Edwards? That's hard to think about. And in this, where we are right now in society and whatever pressure point we're on right now, it's
hard to judge people from one particular instance.
Yeah, we get one headline of something, and then that's who they are entirely.
That is their legacy.
Yeah,
it's like this is not This would be bizarre if this was Dr. Seuss's legacy.
Right. I was like, would it be like?
And he stopped writing for years.
Right.
When this happened, when his wife died.
How many years?
4, or yeah, at least, yeah.
It's like that's so like it.
It was. He wasn't like whatever.
Yeah. Right. He was affected by it.
And also he had been dealing. I mean, they had been dealing with this together.
Yeah.
As a couple, their whole lives. Her illness, his, writing, like they were doing it together. And somehow there's a breaking point there. And who knows what problems she had that they didn't discuss, and what problems he had that they didn't discuss, and like then this thing happens, and it's interesting. Yeah, if this was a 2019 thing that then went public, would he have continued to write for the next 40 years?
And would he have been able to have touched the millions and countless lives that he was able to do? It's like, this is really conflicting, because like his impact and the good that he has done with his legacy, with his work, it's immeasurable.
Yeah.
And important. And if we didn't have it, I think we'd be worse off. So, it's like if thank God almost that social media wasn't around then. It's like, it sounds like he handled it on his own. I don't know. It's just
and it's
so,
just a shame
so
also
sad.
that she committed suicide after the like.
And that's, I don't know. It's just something that we seem to be having to face all the time right now. But it's all the time. I'm almost growing closer to like, man, we
have some empathy.
Yeah, we need to learn more about these people, I guess. I don't know. Like, I don't know what the answer is, but I just don't think that the answer should be just like step one, rage. Yeah. Like, what happened?
They were in a long relationship with a lot of stuff that was going on in his own. I mean, everybody's
just
got
on a
their
personal
problems,
level.
but just
Yeah,
like, how do you?
I'm interested in what the personal struggle, the mental internal struggle with Dr. Seuss was throughout a lot of this, and like I said, and because he just kept going, but it's like, obviously this was hard. Obviously
he didn't talk about it. Yeah.
And at times you had to be insecure. At times he had to wonder if things were working, or if he was right, if he was just, it's like you.
And he recedes from the spotlight, or pretends to be the Cat in the Hat, and like, what is his?
Right.
What is he dealing with here, up until the end? So speaking of which, we didn't talk about this, but there are 3 books that he wrote. The only 3 that he wrote that weren't for kids. One of them was very early on in his career, before most any of the other kids' stuff, right after the advertising stuff. And it was kind of this story, like the 7 lady Godivas, and it was nude women.
Oh, really?
It was in his style. It was for adults.
We're getting the dirt on Dr. Seuss this week, y'all.
Sort of strange.
But like, hey, he's a real person. And and again, it's just it's a different area. And the one. It's like, well, how many things did he write? It's like, that's interesting to know that he did it. Like, well,
yeah. And then never did that again. He's also like, I'm terrible at drawing naked women, so I'm just not going to do this.
I'm wondering, just imagine what you know of Dr. Seuss' aesthetic when he draws, and now imagine him drawing a naked woman.
Yeah, you can find the book.
Floop-de-doop.
It still exists. The other book that he wrote for adults was called You're Only Old Once. And it was when he was getting old and dealing with the troubles of what that's like, and the benefits and the pitfalls. Sounds very sentimental.
It's like, but just with the topics he's covering in all the books, he's thinking.
Yeah, he's a smart dude.
He's thinking about stuff, man. So I'm now more than ever interested in just like, what was it like to be Dr. Seuss that year when nobody knows what's going on and he's writing Cat in the Hat.
Yeah. The last book he wrote, the very last book before he died, was called Oh, the Places You'll Go. You might know it. It's a very popular one. Gets back on the bestsellers list in the springtime for graduations, moving on in life. But it's sort of his final Dr. Seuss-ly, grandfatherly, almost speaking to himself about what's going to happen next, what he did in life, the mountains that you'll conquer. You've got so much ahead of you. again, very heartwarming, but yeah, was not intended for children to learn how to read. It was kind of a final farewell.
Send off.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
But a fascinating life story, interesting, his whole body of work, all the different books that he came up with.
Unparalleled.
Yeah.
Unparalleled.
Because he didn't draw straight lines. Yeah.
Well, man, that was really great. I really loved this one.
Good. Me too.
Yeah.
I liked reading all the rhymes.
This is cool. All right, guys. Let's see. You got an announcement here.
Oh!
Ooh.
A new one.
If you guys would go on iTunes and rate and review whatever you'd like to do, throw us whatever stars you'd like to throw us, but it'd help us out a lot just throwing up something for us.
Feedback. What do you think?
Just get in there, throw them stars, some text, whatever you'd like. That would really help us out.
All right. See y'all.
See you guys next week.
We never talked about one fish, two fish.
I know.
Sad.
Don't think I didn't notice.
I don't have anything about it.
You said you did. You lied to my face. I want that in the bloopers.